I made a post a few days ago over on my Theology Mom page, and I'm lucky usually if I get like 3 comments on a post. I feel like I'm doing big things. I got 3 comments. But the other day I made a comment about churches, and I said that my frustration level was 1,000. We have been watching live streams from churches back east, trying to pre-screen some possible churches for our daughter to attend while she's away at college. And so if you want to read all of the comments, I got 156 comments. I was like, whoa, people are really interested in this topic. So I thought, well, all right, I'll see about maybe talking about it on the family meeting. Um, and I think that we need to talk about this because we have gotten so many letters from people who have lost their church during the pandemic, or they are transitioning churches, and crazy things started emerging during the social unrest last summer. And people are looking for churches. We're not the only one going through this process right now. And I guess I wanted to make a few comments about this. And, I think the most foundational comment that we need to have is like, I, I'm totally committed to attending church. Like, I think attending a church is important. Zoom is not a substitute for a local church. We need to be in person as much as possible. Now, I'm not talking about exceptions. There's always people that want to point out exceptions. What about the shut-ins? What if you have like a disease? Like, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in normal circumstances. For the vast majority of people, we should be committed to attending a local church. Watching a live stream is not the same thing as going to church. There is an inherent need that I think God has made in all of us for the importance of healthy fellowship, the need for support. Like, life is hard. We don't want to be alone in that. We want to have godly voices who are walking with us and helping us and sowing into us and us into them. We need people to help us with discipleship and learning and places that we can go to serve others. And so I absolutely believe that being involved in a local healthy church is vital. And yet there is the reality of the struggle, because it is just it's hard. It is really hard, because here's what I've been noticing is we've been looking at these churches, and yeah, like, live streaming can be valuable to do as a preliminary search for a church. And that sort of a thing. Like, if you go on a church website, and Monique and I did a podcast like a really long time ago, like one of the very first podcasts we did was about looking for a church and how to evaluate a church. And so, we live in a day and age where you can do some preliminary research when you're looking for a church. The first step I always do when I go on a church's website is I look for the statement of faith. How robust is the statement of faith? Is it 4 sentences? Is it really long? Do they list that we hold to these confessional statements? What denomination are they aligned with? Like, there's some info there. So if I go to a church website and there's barely any information about what they believe, that's for me a huge red flag. Like, I'm probably not visiting that church. So go do your due diligence for the basics of what does this church believe? How into what they believe are they? That sort of a thing. Now, I think that thinking about, I'm going to change the caption here. When we think about things like streaming church, Tim says live streaming a church is a temporary solution to find a permanent solution. That's very well stated, Tim. I totally agree with you on that. So you can use these live streams and the benefit of these live streams for pre-vetting a church. That's a great way to utilize that technology. It's also a wonderful technology for shut-ins and people who are disabled or can't get to church in person. But again, we don't want to leave them totally behind. They need also visitation. They need a visitation program. They need real people to come be with them, because there are basic human needs for people to feel connected to the body of Christ. So after you've kind of pre-vetted the statement of faith, the other place that I go is I look to see if the church offers classes. Like, what are the educational opportunities that this church offers? If they don't have something that resembles like a serious Bible study, like a verse by verse Bible study opportunity, or adult Sunday school learning, or a Sunday night learning academy, or some type of apparatus for people to learn about their faith. If all they have are fellowship groups or small groups, that's probably not an environment where there's going to be much discipleship happening, where there's going to be thriving of bringing people along in their faith toward maturity. And that is, to me, can be an indicator of what's happening in the church. Then I go look at the sermons. I start streaming some sermons, and a quick shortcut that I've learned is go stream sermons from the summer of 2020 and the early fall of 2020. Do a search if they have a search engine on their streaming page or on their YouTube channel. Do a search for key terms like justice or racial reconciliation. See what messages they put forward during the unrest. How were they shepherding people? What was the messaging? That will give you some insight into what's happening with their leadership. It's a good thermometer to see what is happening in that church, and when times are hard, how that pastoral team is going to be shepherding people. Another thing you can look at is the leadership. How many leaders do they have? Is it an elder-run church? Does it have multiple leaders, or does it all kind of seem to be built around one guy? That's a really big question. For the health of the church, it ought to reflect the model that is put forward in the New Testament of a plurality of leaders. Ideally, you want to even have a teaching team that's a plurality, so there's not just one voice that's dominating things. So those are some things to think about.